Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you've been trying to figure out which PEMF mat is actually worth your money in 2026, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are going through every major PEMF mat on the market, one by one, and rating each of them across 5 key specifications: intensity, number of coils, therapy options, warranty, and return policy. No fluff, no sponsored bias, just cold, hard data and honest ratings. I've got 33 mats to get through today, so grab a coffee, hit that like button, and let's get into it. Mat number 1, HealthyLine Jet Full Mat. Kicking things off with the HealthyLine Jet Full Mat, one of the most popular multi-therapy mats out there, which has a list price of $1,149. That seems like a very competitive price. It is on the lower end of the devices on the market today, so good start. Let's break down the specs. 10 Gauss outputs this solidly in the 4-star range. That's meaningful therapeutic intensity for a home mat, not the most powerful on the market, but well above the ultra-low devices, ideal for most users. 8 coils is a solid 4-star score. You're getting good full body coverage here. This mat offers much more than PEMF alone. It combines far infrared, negative ions, red light, and heated stones, all working together for greater effectiveness, making it a 5-star choice for therapeutic variety. 5 years. That's a confident full 5-star warranty. HealthyLine stands behind its products and in addition offers a lifetime trade-up program. So if your device fails or you just want to upgrade, you receive full credit towards the purchase of a higher cost product. I have used this once when an old mat died, and I was able to get a newer, better unit for less than a couple of $100s. So with HealthyLine, your investment is protected no matter how many years you have your mat for. 90 days to try it at home. That's a 5-star return window. Apparently, they are very confident their product will work for you. A strong all-rounder at a great price point, $1,149. Hard to argue with a 90-day trial and a 5-year warranty. And I think it is a really good value for the price. I highly recommend this mat for most people looking to treat pain, improve recovery from workouts, and improve overall health. I give it a 5-star rating for overall value. Mat number 2, Celler8 Travel Chair Mat. Next up is the Celler8 Travel Chair Mat. This one targets portability and packs a punch in intensity. This is the type of mat I use every day because I don't have to set aside time to lay on it. Let's see how it scores. It has a frequency range a little larger than the HealthyLine Jet. It is 1 to 100 Hz, 400 Gauss. That is in a completely different league. This is high intensity PEMF, well above the 50 Gauss threshold for 5 stars, landing at a well-earned 5+. Just to give you an idea of how powerful this mat is, it is over 114,000% greater in intensity than the popular Bemer mat. If raw intensity is your priority, this is a top contender, especially for treating more serious conditions. 6 coils in a chair mat format, you will get very consistent coverage. Remember, it is a chair format, so it is smaller than a full-size mat. I will give it 5 stars. PEMF only, 3 stars. This is a pure PEMF device. No infrared, no hot stones. If you want a focused, high-intensity PEMF only experience, that's fine. But if you want multi-therapy, look elsewhere. 2 years is a 2-star warranty. For a mat at this price point, you'd hope for more coverage. 30 days puts it right at the 2-star mark. That's a fairly tight window to evaluate a nearly $3,000 device. The list price is $2,795, which is an amazing price for a mat with this intensity. For example, the highest powered mat I have on my review site, perfectpemf.com, is 100 Gauss, and it retails for $5,900. For the convenience and the intensity in Gauss, I rate this mat a 5+ stars. This is one of the most powerful PEMF mats on the market today. Monster intensity, but the warranty and return policy are a little on the light side. It is best for people who specifically want high-powered PEMF in a chair format. The thing I like about this mat is that you can use it while watching TV or working on the computer. You don't have to set aside time to specifically do a treatment. Remember, it is smaller than a full-size mat, so coverage is naturally more limited than a full-body mat. I would choose this mat if you needed something that is convenient and is able to penetrate deep into your tissues to treat those more serious conditions. I would rate this mat a 5-star for value and definitely recommend this mat. It is the convenience and the intensity that pushed me in that direction. Mat number 3, Celler8 Full Mat, the big brother Celler8 Full Mat. Full body coverage, same intensity philosophy. 700 Gauss. This is the highest intensity we will see on this entire list. That's 5-star plus a double plus rating, extraordinary field strength for a home mat, clinical level intensity. 12 coils earn 5 stars plus, superb coverage across the full body. Again, pure PEMF. 3 stars, focused but not diverse. 3 years, 3 stars. Better than the travel mat, but still modest for the price. Same 30-day window as the travel mat, still 2 stars. If you compare this mat to the Curatron Parmeds Home PEMF Mat, which lists for price $4,285 and produces only 70 Gauss, this mat is a steal at only $2,197 for 10 times the intensity. If you want the absolute most powerful home PEMF mat money can buy, the Celler8 Full Mat delivers. Just be aware that the return window is tight and it won't give you infrared or other therapies. But if you are treating more serious conditions that would benefit from PEMF waves reaching deep into your body, this is the mat for you. It is the most powerful mat on the market today, and it is reasonably priced compared to its competitors. I highly recommend it. Mat number 4, HealthyLine Rainbow Chakra. The HealthyLine Rainbow Chakra mat, one of the most visually distinctive mats on the market, but how does it score? 2 Gauss is my recommended bare minimum for an effective mat. 6 coils, 3 stars. Decent but not exceptional. This mat has red light therapy, which many HealthyLine mats skip. Add infrared, hot stones, and the chakra alignment feature. That's a full 5 stars for therapy diversity. 5-year warranty. 5 stars. This is not a bad mat, but I think the HealthyLine Jet Mat is a better value. Good scores across the board, except the intensity is a little lower than I would like. The coil count is the only soft spot. If you want a premium multi-therapy experience with red light included, I would look at the HealthyLine Jet Mat. Mat number 5, OMI PEMF Beyond Advanced. Today we're looking at the OMI PEMF Beyond Advanced from Oxford Medicals, a brand that has built a pretty solid reputation in the clinical PEMF world. This mat comes in at $1,590, with frequencies ranging from 1 to 99 Hz, so let's break down exactly what you're getting for the money. 10 Gauss gets 4 stars from me. That's a strong mid-range intensity level that should work well for most people using PEMF for recovery, relaxation, circulation, or general wellness. It's not ultra-high powered, but it's definitely not weak either. For everyday home use, this is a respectable level of output. Next, coil count. 8 coils also earns 4 stars. That gives you good full body coverage and helps distribute the PEMF field more evenly across the mat. Some lower end mats cut corners here, but 8 coils is enough to create a more balanced treatment experience. Now let's talk therapies. This is a pure PEMF device. No infrared, no negative ions, no heating layers, just PEMF. For some people, that simplicity is actually a positive because you know exactly what you're paying for. But compared to multifunction wellness mats on the market today, it does feel a little limited, so I'm giving that 3 stars. Warranty next. 3-year warranty, 3 stars. It's decent, not terrible, not amazing. At this price point, I would personally like to see at least 5 years of coverage for a little more peace of mind. And then we get to the biggest weakness here, the return policy. 30 days gets 2 stars from me. Honestly, for a product that costs over $1,500, I think buyers should get more time to test it out. PEMF can take a while for people to fully evaluate, so a longer return window would make this a much safer purchase. Now, overall value, this actually is not a bad choice. OMI has strong clinical credibility, and the build quality appears solid. If you want a straightforward PEMF-only system from a known brand, this mat absolutely deserves consideration. That said, I do think the HealthyLine Jet Mat gives you more overall value for the money because you typically get more therapies and a more consumer-friendly package. Final verdict, the OMI PEMF Beyond Advanced is a respectable, focused PEMF device at a reasonable price. It keeps things simple, has good clinical credibility behind the brand, and delivers solid core specs. But the shorter return window and lack of additional therapies hold it back from being one of the strongest overall values in the category. Mat number 6, Bemer PEMF Mat. The Bemer, probably one of the most heavily marketed PEMF devices in the world. This company built a massive distributor network over the years, and a lot of these systems ended up in chiropractic offices and wellness clinics. There's definitely strong brand recognition here. But today we're not talking about marketing. We're looking at the actual specs and whether the performance justifies the price. And honestly, this one may surprise some people. First, intensity. 0.035 Gauss. That is extremely low. In fact, it's one of the weakest magnetic field strengths on this entire list. For comparison, many modern PEMF mats operate at several Gauss, sometimes even double-digit Gauss output. Now, Bemer supporters will argue that their waveform technology matters more than raw intensity, and that's fair to mention. But if we're strictly evaluating measurable field strength, this scores 1 star. There's just no way around it. Now let's talk coil count. This is where Bemer performs much better. 16 coils is excellent. That gives very broad and even body coverage across the mat. From an engineering standpoint, the coil distribution here is impressive and deserves full marks. Next, therapies. This is a PEMF only system. No infrared heat, no photon therapy, no gemstone layers, no additional wellness features. That simplicity may appeal to some users, but compared to newer multifunction mats on the market, it feels limited. 3 stars. Now here's the part that really shocked me. 6 months on a device that costs around $4,200. Honestly, that is extremely difficult to justify. At this price level, most consumers would expect at least a few years of protection. A 6-month warranty raises concerns about long-term value and buyer confidence. This absolutely gets 1 star. Return policy next. 30 days earns 2 stars. It's acceptable, but again, for such an expensive wellness device, I think buyers should have more time to evaluate results before committing. And now overall value. For me, this is where the numbers become hard to ignore. Yes, Bemer has brand recognition. Yes, they have a large professional network. But when you compare the raw specifications, warranty, and price against many newer PEMF systems available today, the value simply doesn't hold up very well. Personally, I think the HealthyLine Jet Mat gives consumers substantially more for their money. Final verdict, Bemer may be one of the most recognizable names in PEMF, but recognition alone does not equal performance. Excellent coil distribution helps this system, but the extremely low intensity, short warranty, and very high price make it difficult to recommend purely on value. Mat number 7, BioBalance PEMF Mat. All right, next up is the BioBalance PEMF Mat. And this one is interesting for a couple reasons. First, it's sold through Dr. William Powlick's website. If you've spent any time researching PEMF, you've probably come across his name before. He's considered one of the better-known PEMF educators and experts in North America, so the fact that this mat is associated with him definitely adds some credibility. Now, of course, reputation alone doesn't make a mat good, so let's break down the actual specs and see how it stacks up. 10 Gauss puts this mat in a strong category. That's enough intensity for people who want a more powerful PEMF experience without getting into some of the ultra-high commercial systems that cost dramatically more. So overall, 4 stars here. Solid power output. Now this is where the BioBalance really stands out. 21 coils. That is the highest coil count of any mat in this entire comparison. And why does that matter? Because more coils generally means better body coverage and more even distribution of the PEMF signal across the mat. Instead of having dead zones or weaker areas, you get more consistent coverage from head to toe. So for full body PEMF sessions, this is honestly impressive. Easy 5 stars plus here. This mat focuses strictly on PEMF therapy. No infrared, no negative ions, no photon lights, no extra bundled therapies. Now, depending on your perspective, that could actually be a positive. Some people prefer a dedicated PEMF system instead of an all-in-one wellness mat with a bunch of extras added in. But in terms of overall feature count compared to combo mats on the market, I still have to score this at 3 stars. The warranty is 3 years. Not bad, but not amazing either. There are companies now offering 5-year warranties, and in some cases even longer, so 3 years feels more middle of the road in today's market. 3 stars. Now this is a strong point. 90-day return policy. That gives you a lot more time to actually test the mat consistently and decide whether PEMF is working for you. A lot of companies give you 30 days, sometimes less, so 90 days is excellent. Easy 5 stars here. So here's where things get a little more complicated. The BioBalance absolutely has some strengths. Excellent coil coverage, strong intensity, long return policy, credibility behind the brand. But the challenge is the price. At around $2,590, it's significantly more expensive than several mats with fairly similar core PEMF specs. For example, it's roughly about $1,000 more than something like the HealthyLine Jet in many cases, and even more compared to some other strong value options on the market. So while the performance looks good, the value equation becomes tougher for a lot of buyers. That's why I land at 3 stars for value. So overall, the BioBalance mat does a few things exceptionally well. The biggest standout is definitely the coil count. 21 coils is remarkable, and if your primary goal is strong full-body PEMF coverage, this mat deserves serious consideration. I also like the 90-day return policy. That reduces some of the risk when you're spending this kind of money. The biggest downside really comes down to pricing, because once you get above the $2,500 range, buyers naturally start comparing it against a lot of other premium mats that offer similar intensity levels, sometimes with additional therapies included. So if maximum coil coverage and a PEMF-focused design are your priorities, the BioBalance is definitely worth a look. But if value per dollar is your main concern, there may be other options that give you very similar performance for substantially less money. Mat number 8, QRS Home PEMF Mat. All right, next up is the QRS Home PEMF Mat. QRS has actually been around for quite a while in the PEMF industry and has a pretty loyal following, especially in Europe. So this is definitely not some brand new company that just showed up last year. They've built a reputation over time, and a lot of people who use QRS really like the system. But as always in this series, I'm looking at the actual specs, the features, the value, and whether the numbers justify the price. And this one gets interesting pretty quickly. So the first thing we need to talk about is intensity. The QRS Home PEMF Mat comes in at 0.04 Gauss. That is extremely low intensity. I mean, really low. So for my rating system, that's going to be 1 star. Now to be fair, QRS, similar to systems like Bemer, follows the philosophy that ultra-low intensity PEMF is more natural and designed to mimic the Earth's magnetic field. And there are definitely users who believe strongly in that approach. Some people absolutely love low-intensity PEMF. But personally, when I'm evaluating a PEMF mat, I generally want to see at least around 2 Gauss minimum, and ideally something closer to 10 Gauss or more for stronger full-body sessions. So when I see 0.04 Gauss on a mat that costs $4,000, that's just not impressive to me from a performance standpoint. Again, that's my opinion based on the specs and the current market. Now let's talk about coils. Here's the problem. I could not find a published coil count for this mat, and if a company doesn't clearly publish the coil layout or coil count, I can't really evaluate it properly. So I'm not going to pretend or guess. No published data means no score here. That gives it 0 stars for coils. And honestly, at this price point, I really think the company should be more transparent with the technical details. For therapies, this is a PEMF only mat. No infrared, no red light, no negative ions, no hot stone layer, just PEMF. That's not necessarily bad if PEMF is all you want, but compared to many modern mats that combine multiple therapies into one system, it does feel limited. So for therapies, I'm giving it 3 stars. Pretty middle of the road there. Warranty is 2 years. That earns 2 stars from me. Again, when you're spending around $4,000, I'd really like to see longer coverage, ideally 5 years or more, especially in today's market where several competitors are offering significantly better warranty protection. Return policy is 30 days. That's going to be 2 stars. And honestly, this is one area where I think companies should do better. If someone is spending this kind of money on a wellness device, they should have enough time to really test it consistently and see how they feel using it. 30 days just feels short for a product in this price category. So now we get to the big question, is this mat a good value? For me, no. This is a 1-star value rating, and here's why. You're paying around $4,000 for extremely low intensity PEMF, limited published technical information, PEMF only, a short warranty, and a fairly average return policy. Now yes, QRS has history. Yes, it has long-term users. And yes, some people genuinely love these ultra-low intensity systems. But if I'm comparing this strictly on specs, features, and overall value against what else is available on the market today, I personally think there are much stronger options for the money. So overall, the QRS Home PEMF Mat feels more like a legacy system that hasn't really kept up with the value and feature competition in today's PEMF market. If you specifically believe in ultra-low intensity PEMF, you may still find it appealing. But for me personally, at $4,000 with only 0.04 Gauss intensity and limited feature set, it's a really hard mat to recommend, especially when there are newer systems offering significantly more power, more therapies, longer warranties, and better return policies for equal or even lower pricing. So for my rankings, this one lands near the bottom of the list. Mat number 9, iMRS 2000 PEMF Mat. All right, next up we have the iMRS 2000. Now this is another pretty well-known name in the PEMF world. The iMRS system comes from Swiss Bionic Solutions, and within the PEMF community, this brand definitely carries some prestige. There are practitioners and longtime PEMF users who swear by these systems, so this isn't some random unknown mat. But once again, in this review series, I'm trying to stay focused on measurable specs, overall value, and what you're actually getting for the money. And when we start looking at the numbers here, I have some concerns. First up is intensity. The iMRS 2000 comes in at 0.70 Gauss, so once again we're under that 2 Gauss minimum that I personally like to see in a PEMF mat. That gives it 1 star for intensity. Now to be fair, iMRS follows more of the low-intensity PEMF philosophy, similar to a few other premium European systems. The idea is that lower intensity may work more gently with the body rather than blasting it with extremely high output. And look, some people absolutely prefer that style of PEMF. But from my perspective, when you're spending over $3,000, I expect stronger specs than this, especially because there are mats on the market right now offering dramatically higher intensity for significantly less money. So while the brand name is respected, the raw intensity numbers just don't impress me here. Now for coils. The iMRS 2000 uses 6 coils. That's actually not terrible. It's not amazing either, but it's respectable. So I'm giving this mat 3 stars for coil count. A higher coil count can potentially help with field distribution across the body, although coil design matters too, not just the number alone. Still, compared to some mats that are using 12, 20, or even more coils, 6 feels pretty average for this price category. For therapies, this is another PEMF-only system. No infrared heat, no red light, no negative ions, no gemstone layer, just PEMF. So for me, that lands right in the middle at 3 stars. There's nothing wrong with a PEMF-only approach if that's specifically what you want. But in today's market, a lot of consumers are looking for multi-therapy systems that combine several wellness technologies into one mat. So compared to the competition, this setup feels a little limited. Warranty is 3 years. That's actually decent. Not outstanding, but decent. So I'm giving it 3 stars there. At least it's better than some of the shorter warranties we've seen so far in this series. Still, at this price point, I'd personally prefer to see 5 years or longer. Now, unfortunately, we hit another major issue. The Medithera reportedly has no return policy. So once again, that's 0 stars from me. And honestly, this is becoming a recurring issue with some of these premium PEMF brands. If you're asking customers to spend thousands of dollars, there really should be some type of risk-free trial period. Without one, buyers are committing a lot of money upfront with no safety net if the product doesn't meet expectations. That's something I personally weigh very heavily in these reviews. So overall value, for me, this is another 1-star value rating, mainly because the intensity is still very low, the coil information isn't transparent, there are no extra therapies, and there's no return policy. Now, the German engineering aspect is definitely a positive, and the broader frequency range is interesting. But specs alone don't justify the price for me here, especially considering how competitive the PEMF market has become. So overall, the Medithera mat has a couple of interesting points, particularly the wider frequency range and the German engineered branding. But when I look at the complete package, especially the low intensity, lack of published coil data, and no return policy, I just don't think the value lines up with the price. For me personally, there are simply stronger overall options available in the PEMF market today. Mat R10, Medithera PEMF Mat. All right, next up is the Medithera PEMF Mat. This one is marketed as a German engineered system, and one thing that immediately stands out is the fairly wide frequency range. So at first glance, it sounds promising, but as always, once we dig deeper into the specs and compare it to the overall price, the story changes a bit. Let's start with intensity. The Medithera mat comes in at 0.75 Gauss. So again, we're still below the 2 Gauss minimum that I personally like to see in a PEMF system. That gives it 1 star for intensity. Now technically, it's a little stronger than some of the ultra-low intensity mats we've already covered, but realistically, 0.75 Gauss is still very low compared to many of the stronger full-body PEMF mats available today. And when I look at a mat costing nearly $2,500, I expect more output than this, especially considering how many competing mats are delivering several times the intensity at similar or lower prices. Next up, coils. Unfortunately, I could not find published coil information for this mat, and again, if the company isn't transparent about the coil count or coil layout, I can't properly evaluate it, so I'm not going to guess. That means it gets 0 stars for coils. Honestly, I really wish more PEMF companies would fully publish their technical specs. It would make comparison shopping so much easier for consumers. For therapies, this is another PEMF only mat. No infrared, no red light, no additional wellness layers, just PEMF. So that gives it 3 stars, pretty average score there. Again, some people specifically want a simple PEMFA only system, and that's completely fine. But when comparing value across the market, multi-therapy mats definitely tend to offer more versatility. Warranty here is 2 years. That earns 2 stars. Not terrible, but definitely not impressive either. At this price point, I'd personally expect longer coverage and a little more confidence from the manufacturer. Now, unfortunately, we hit another major issue. The Medithera reportedly has no return policy. So once again, that's 0 stars from me. And honestly, this is becoming a recurring issue with some of these premium PEMF brands. If you're asking customers to spend thousands of dollars, there really should be some type of risk-free trial period. Without one, buyers are committing a lot of money up front with no safety net if the product doesn't meet expectations. That's something I personally weigh very heavily in these reviews. So overall value, for me, this is another 1-star value rating, mainly because the intensity is still very low, the coil information isn't transparent, there are no extra therapies, and there's no return policy. Now, the German engineering aspect is definitely a positive, and the broader frequency range is interesting, but specs alone don't justify the price for me here, especially considering how competitive the PEMF market has become. So overall, the Medithera mat has a couple of interesting points, particularly the wider frequency range and the German engineered branding. But when I look at the complete package, especially the low intensity, lack of published coil data, and no return policy, I just don't think the value lines up with the price. For me personally, there are simply stronger overall options available in the PEMF market today. Mat number 11, Curatron Parmeds Home PEMF Mat. All right, now we're stepping into the high-intensity category with the Curatron Parmeds Home PEMF Mat. And this one is interesting because Curatron has historically been viewed as more of a clinical-grade PEMF brand. For a long time, this was considered one of the true powerhouse systems available for home users. Honestly, before some of the newer ultra-high-intensity mats hit the market, especially systems like Celler8, the Curatron was one of the big names people talked about when they wanted serious power. And once we get into the intensity specs, you'll immediately see why. The Curatron comes in at 70 Gauss. That is extremely strong for a home PEMF system. This easily lands in the 5-star plus category for intensity. And to put this into perspective, that is roughly 19,900% stronger than the popular Bemer mat in terms of peak Gauss output. Now, obviously, intensity is not the only thing that matters in PEMF. Waveform, pulse design, frequency, coil layout, and user goals all matter too. But purely from a raw power standpoint, this thing is impressive. If someone specifically wants a stronger clinical style PEMF experience at home, the Curatron absolutely stands out. Now, unfortunately, this is where things start getting frustrating. I could not find a published coil count or detailed coil layout information. And again, I say this all throughout these reviews. If the company doesn't clearly publish the coil specs, I can't properly evaluate consistency of coverage across the mat. So I'm not going to assume. That means it gets 0 stars for coil transparency, and honestly for a nearly $5,000 device. I really think those technical details should be clearly available, especially for educated buyers trying to compare systems side by side. For therapies, This is a PEMF only system. No infrared heat, no red light, no negative ions, no gemstone layer, just PEMF. So that gives it 3 stars. Now, to be fair, this mat is really focused on delivering strong PEMF intensity rather than stacking multiple wellness features together. And some users actually prefer that simpler clinical style approach. But compared to many modern mats that combine several therapies into one product, it does feel limited feature-wise. Now here's where things get concerning. At the time of this review, I could not find a clearly listed warranty on the company website. So for scoring purposes, that ends up being 0 stars. And honestly, that's a major issue for me. If I'm spending close to $5,000 on a wellness device, I absolutely want clear warranty information before purchasing. That should not be difficult to find. Same issue with the return policy. I could not find clear return policy details published on the website. So again, that results in 0 stars, and this becomes a serious consumer risk. Because even though the intensity specs are excellent, buyers still need protection when making a purchase this expensive. Personally, before purchasing something like this, I would absolutely contact the company directly and get warranty and return details in writing first. Now this one is interesting because despite the concerns, I still think this mat has strong value in a certain category. I'm giving it a 5-star plus value score for performance-focused users. Why? Because the intensity is legitimately impressive. For people specifically searching for a stronger clinical style PEMF system, there are not many home mats that compete in this range. And historically, this was one of the only real options in that category. Now today, newer competitors like Celler8 have entered the market and changed the landscape a bit. But the Curatron still deserves recognition for its power output. That said, I personally would struggle spending nearly $5,000 without clearly published warranty and return information. So while the performance value is high, the consumer protection side still worries me quite a bit. So overall, the Curatron Parmeds Home Mat is one of the strongest PEMF systems we've reviewed so far from a raw intensity standpoint. And if high intensity PEMF is your main priority, this mat absolutely deserves attention. But the lack of transparency around warranty and return policies is a serious downside for me. So before buying, I would strongly recommend verifying all of those details directly with the manufacturer, because at this price point, you really want to know exactly what protections you have as a consumer. Mat number 12, Hooga Infrared PEMF Chair Mat. All right, now we're getting into something completely different. This is the Hooga Infrared PEMF Chair Mat. And honestly, this mat surprised me because at only $349, I was not expecting much. But once I started looking at the specs and features, this thing actually became one of the most interesting value products on the entire list. Now, obviously, this is a chair mat, not a full body mat, so expectations need to be realistic. But for the price, there's a lot to like here. The Hooga chair mat comes in at 10 Gauss, and at this price point, that is genuinely impressive. That earns 5 stars for intensity, especially considering there are premium mats costing thousands of dollars that don't even come close to this output. For an entry-level PEMF product, 10 Gauss is honestly very solid. Now for coils, this mat uses 2 coils, so that gives it 1 star, but honestly, that's expected. This is a compact chair mat designed for sitting in a chair, recliner, couch, or office seat, not a giant full-body treatment system, so limited coil count is part of the design. But 2 coils is going to affect the consistent on the waveforms across the mat. Now this is where the value really starts showing up. This mat includes PEMF, infrared heat, negative ions, hot stones, and chakra stones. That's 5 different therapy types in a product that costs under $350. That is honestly kind of crazy. So this easily earns 5 stars for therapy variety. Whether or not someone personally cares about every one of those therapies is a separate conversation. But purely from a feature standpoint, Hooga packed a lot into this thing. Warranty is 3 years. That earns 3 stars. And honestly, for a budget-friendly product, I think that's fair and respectable. Return policy is 60 days. That gets 4 stars from me. And this is important because if someone is brand new to PEMF, having time to actually try it matters. 60 days is a pretty reasonable testing window. This is where the Hooga Chair Mat really shines. For me, this gets 5 stars for value. And honestly, if someone is unsure whether PEMF is for them, this is one of the best entry points I've seen, because instead of spending thousands of dollars up front, you can test the experience at a much lower price point. And you're still getting solid intensity, multiple therapies, a decent warranty, and a good return window. Plus, I love the convenience factor here. You don't necessarily need to set aside therapy time. You can literally use this while working at your desk, watching TV, gaming, or sitting in a recliner. That practicality makes this mat really appealing for everyday use. So overall, the Hooga Chair Mat is probably the best low-cost entry-level PEMF product on this entire list. No, it's not the most advanced. No, it's not a clinical-grade full-body system. But for under $350, this thing seriously over-delivers. And if you're PEMF curious but not ready to spend thousands of dollars yet, I actually think this is a really smart place to start. If you are serious about a chair format mat, it is a good format for many people. It is the format that I use. Don't forget to also look at the HealthyLine Jet Chair Mat. It has a little better specs. Mat number 13, Red Life PEMF. Next up is Red Life PEMF. Red Life is already well known in the red light therapy world, so it makes sense that they eventually expanded into PEMF, and you can definitely see the red light influence in the feature set here. The listed intensity ranges from 1 to 30 Gauss. At maximum output, that earns 4 stars, and adjustable intensity is always nice because it gives users more flexibility. But then we hit the coil count, only 4 coils, that's 2 stars. For nearly $1,700, that feels low. This is where Red Life really differentiates itself. PEMF combined with red light and infrared, 5 stars, and since red light is already their specialty, there's a good chance this portion of the system is implemented very well. 1-year warranty, again, only 1 star, 30-day returns, 2 stars. I still lean toward HealthyLine for overall value. If your priority is specifically combining PEMF with quality red light therapy, Red Life absolutely has credibility in that space. But the low coil count and short warranty keep this from feeling fully competitive at the current price. Mat number 14, Hooga Infrared PEMF Mat. Next up is the standard Hooga Infrared PEMF Full Mat. It's similar to their chair mat, but this is probably the option that many people will end up considering since you get a full-size mat for not much more money. While I like the convenience of the chair mat, having a mat that covers your entire body is definitely a step up. At $699, this is still firmly in the budget-friendly category for a full-size PEMF mat, so let's see how the specs stack up. 10 Gauss earns 4 stars. That is strong intensity for a mat in this price range. It is comfortably above my minimum recommendation of 2 Gauss. Honestly, 10 Gauss is enough power for most people using PEMF for pain relief, recovery, circulation, sleep, or general wellness. This is not a weak mat, especially at under $700. 6 coils gives it 3 stars. That's decent, but not exceptional. This model does sacrifice a little coverage to hit a lower price point. Still, for most users, 6 coils will provide reasonably consistent full body coverage. I don't think it's a deal breaker at all. This is where the Hooga really shines. You're getting PEMF, infrared heat, negative ions, and heated stones all built into one mat. That's a full multi-therapy setup for a very reasonable price. 3-year warranty, 3 stars. Pretty solid for a company in this price category. Not as strong as HealthyLine's 5-year coverage, but respectable. 60 days earns 4 stars. I like this a lot better than the standard 30-day trial we see from many competitors. 2 full months give buyers enough time to evaluate whether the mat is helping them. This is where Hooga becomes really attractive. At under $700, getting 10 Gauss intensity plus multiple therapies is honestly hard to beat. There are mats on this list costing 2 or 3 times more that don't perform much better on paper. Overall, this is a very solid mid-tier Hooga mat. If you want a full-body PEMF experience without spending over $1,000, this is one of the strongest values on the market right now. The coil count is slightly lower than some premium mats, but the intensity, therapies, and price balance things out really well. For budget-conscious buyers, this is absolutely worth serious consideration. Mat number 15, HealthyLine Jet Chair Mat. Now let's move into the HealthyLine Jet Chair Mat, and this is one of my favorite categories of PEMF devices because chair mats are just incredibly practical. You can use them while working, watching TV, gaming, or sitting at your desk. You don't necessarily have to carve out 30 or 40 minutes to lie down for a dedicated session, and HealthyLine is probably one of the biggest names in the PEMF mat world. They offer a huge variety of models, different therapy combinations, and overall, I think they've done a really good job balancing price with consumer protection. So, let's break this one down. 8 Gauss gets 4 stars, very respectable for a chair format PEMF mat. Again, this is well above the low-intensity devices we've seen from brands like Bemer or QRS. 8 Gauss is enough intensity for meaningful therapeutic use in a home environment. 6 coils earn 3 stars, and honestly, for a chair mat, that's actually pretty good. Remember, the Hooga chair mat only had 2 coils, so HealthyLine is giving you significantly better coverage here in a similarly compact format. Multi-therapy setup, 5 stars. You're getting PEMF, infrared heat, negative ions, and heated stones all in one package. That creates a much more complete wellness experience compared to PEMF-only devices. This is where HealthyLine really separates itself from many competitors. 5-year warranty, full 5 stars, and on top of that, they offer a lifetime trade-in program, which I personally think is one of the most underrated policies in this industry. I actually used this myself years ago when one of my older mats stopped heating properly. Instead of buying a brand new mat at full price, HealthyLine gave me full credit toward an upgraded model, and I only paid a couple $100 difference. That kind of long-term customer support matters. 90 days, 5 stars. Again, this shows confidence in the product. 3 full months gives buyers enough time to genuinely evaluate results. At $599, this is one of the best chair mat values on the entire list. You're getting strong intensity, multiple therapies, a 5-year warranty, and a 90-day trial period. That combination is hard to beat. Overall, this is one of the easiest mats on this list to recommend. The coil count is the only real limitation, but for a chair format device, that's understandable. The convenience factor here is huge because you can realistically use this every day without changing your routine. For people who want practical, consistent PEMF use at home, this is a fantastic option. Mat number 16, Sparkle PEMF Mat. Next up is the Sparkle PEMF Mat, a lesser-known brand, but one that immediately stands out because of one thing, the return policy. And honestly, I wish more PEMF companies were this consumer-friendly. Let's look at the specs. 3 Gauss earns 3 stars. Now personally, I recommend at least 2 Gauss minimum for a PEMF mat, and ideally, I prefer something closer to 10 Gauss or more. But 3 Gauss is still much stronger than ultra-low intensity systems like Bemer or QRS. So while it's not exceptionally powerful, it is still within a range I consider usable. 6 coils, 3 stars, not amazing, not terrible. Pretty middle of the road overall. Multi-therapy setup, 5 stars. Again, this combination is becoming more common because consumers increasingly want more than just PEMF alone. 5-year warranty, excellent. That gives buyers some real long-term confidence in the product, and here's the standout feature, 108 days. That is the longest return policy in this entire review. That's over 3.5 months to test the mat in your own home. Honestly, I love seeing this because PEMF can sometimes take time before people fully notice the benefits. This policy removes a lot of buyer risk. At just under $1,000, I think the value here is pretty good overall. The intensity is modest, so that holds it back slightly for me. But the combination of therapies, long warranty, and industry-leading return policy makes this a very consumer-friendly option. The Sparkle mat may not have the strongest intensity on this list, but from a consumer protection standpoint, it's one of the safest purchases here. That 108-day return policy is genuinely impressive, and the overall price is competitive for a multi-therapy mat. Mat 17, Curatronic Ultra Flash. All right, now we get to the heavyweight, the Curatronic Ultra Flash. At over $9,000, this is the most expensive mat in the entire review. So this thing really needs to perform, and to be fair, the intensity numbers are serious. 70 Gauss on the mat itself, 5 stars plus, and the accessory pad reportedly reaches 200 Gauss for targeted applications. That is clinical grade territory. 8 coils earns 4 stars. Solid, though not extraordinary considering the price. Strong multi-therapy package. 5 stars. 3-year warranty. 3 stars. And honestly, for over $9,000, I would expect more. 60-day returns, 4 stars, good consumer protection. I still think HealthyLine offers better overall value for most buyers. Now, this is one of the few mats where the premium pricing actually does show up in the specs, especially intensity. The performance numbers are impressive. But once you cross $9,000, you're no longer competing with consumer wellness products. You're competing with professional and clinical grade equipment. And at that level, a 3-year warranty starts feeling a little thin. Still, for someone who specifically wants extremely high intensity PEMF at home and has the budget for it, this is clearly a serious device. Mat number 18, Therasage TheraPro Mat. Next up is the Therasage TheraPro Mat. Therasage is actually a pretty respected name in the wellness space, especially in infrared and detox-focused products. This mat also includes built-in TENS therapy, which immediately makes it more interesting than a standard PEMF-only system. But once we start digging into the actual specs, a few concerns show up pretty quickly. This is the biggest issue with the Therasage. The Gauss intensity is not published. It's listed as 0 or simply not available, depending on where you look. And for me, that's a real transparency problem. When you're spending around $1,000 on a PEMF device, you deserve to know how strong the magnetic field actually is. Intensity is one of the most important specs in this entire category. Without that information, it becomes very difficult to objectively compare this mat against competitors. So unfortunately, this gets 0 stars for intensity disclosure. 6 coils earn 3 stars. Pretty average overall. Not terrible, not exceptional. Coverage should be decent, but nothing here really stands out compared to other mats in this price range. This is where the Therasage performs much better. You're getting PEMF, TENS therapy, infrared heat, negative ions, and heated stones all built into one system. That's a strong multi-therapy package and definitely one of the mat's biggest strengths. For people who value combining multiple wellness modalities, this checks a lot of boxes. But then we hit another weak spot. 1-year warranty, 1 star. That's simply too short for a $1,000 wellness device in my opinion, especially when companies like HealthyLine are offering 5-year warranties at lower prices. 30 days gets 2 stars, again, acceptable but not generous. I would really prefer to see at least 60 or 90 days for a device at this price point. Overall, this is where things become difficult for me. Therasage absolutely has a strong reputation as a wellness brand, and I do like the therapy combination here, but the missing intensity specs, combined with the short warranty, create too much uncertainty for my taste. The Therasage TheraPro has a lot of appealing wellness features on paper, especially with the inclusion of TENS therapy, but the lack of published intensity data is a major issue for me personally. At this price, I think consumers deserve full technical transparency and stronger warranty protection. Until that improves, I would personally look elsewhere. Mat number 19, HealthyLine TAO Mat. Now let's move to the HealthyLine TAO Mat, one of HealthyLine's older entry-level full-body models. And this is actually a good example of how PEMF technology has evolved over the years, because you can clearly see where HealthyLine improved things in their newer Jet and Platinum series. Still, for under $800, this mat does have some strengths. 2 Gauss earns 3 stars. This is basically the minimum intensity level I personally recommend for a PEMF mat. It's usable, but I definitely prefer something closer to 10 Gauss when possible, so this sits firmly in the modest intensity category. Now here's the biggest weakness. Only 2 coils. For a full-size body mat, that's just not enough coverage in my opinion. HealthyLine clearly recognized this because their newer models dramatically increased coil counts, so this gets 1 star. Still, therapy-wise, this is a very complete package. You're getting PEMF, infrared heat, negative ions, and heated stones all together, which is impressive at this price point. 5 stars there. And once again, HealthyLine shines with warranty support. 5 years, full 5 stars. This is one of the biggest reasons HealthyLine consistently scores well in these reviews. 90 days, another 5-star category. 3 full months gives buyers real time to evaluate whether PEMF is working for them. Overall, the TAO mat feels a little dated compared to HealthyLine's newer offerings. The low intensity and especially the 2 coil setup hold it back quite a bit. The TAO mat still benefits from HealthyLine's outstanding warranty and return policy, which adds a lot of consumer confidence. But honestly, I think the HealthyLine Jet Mat is the better value today. The newer models simply improve the coil distribution and overall performance too much for me to strongly recommend the TAO unless the price is heavily discounted. Mat to 20, Sedona Pro PEMF. Now we move into serious clinical territory. The Sedona Pro is one of the most expensive devices in this entire review at nearly $6,000. And to be fair, some of the specs here are genuinely impressive, especially the intensity. 100 Gauss earns 5 stars plus without question. That is extremely powerful output and firmly in what I consider clinical grade intensity territory. This is not a lightweight consumer wellness mat. This is a high-powered PEMF system designed for people who specifically want very strong magnetic field exposure. Unfortunately, coil count is not published. That's disappointing because at this price level, I would absolutely expect full technical transparency. This is a pure PEMF device. No infrared, no hot stones, no red light, no negative ions. Some buyers may actually prefer that simplicity because the focus is entirely on PEMF performance. But compared to multi-therapy mats, it does feel more limited feature-wise. And here's where things start getting harder to justify. 2-year warranty on a nearly $6,000 device gets 2 stars from me. At this price level, I would expect at least 5 years. And then we hit the biggest issue. No return policy, 0 days. Honestly, that's a major risk for consumers. Spending $6,000 on a wellness device you cannot return under any circumstances requires a very high level of trust and confidence. Overall, the Sedona Pro absolutely delivers on raw power and frequency range. The intensity here is legitimate, but the lack of a return policy combined with the short warranty creates a risk profile that many buyers may not be comfortable with. The Sedona Pro is clearly designed for buyers who prioritize high-intensity PEMF above everything else. But personally, I would proceed very cautiously with any $6,000 device that offers no return policy. Honestly, I think many consumers should also look at alternatives like the Celler8, which delivers even higher intensity with better warranty protection at a lower price point. Mat No. 21, Vasindux Home PEMF. The Vasindux Home, a mid-tier PEMF mat with a very wide frequency range on paper. Let's break down whether the actual specs justify the price. 0.75 Gauss, that falls below my 2 Gauss minimum recommendation, so this gets 1 star. And this is where philosophy really starts to matter in PEMF. Some brands intentionally operate at ultra-low intensity levels, believing subtle stimulation is the goal. Personally, for over $2,000, I want to see more output capability. 8 coils, 4 stars. That's a respectable coil count and should provide decent body coverage across the mat. PEMF only. 3 stars. No infrared, no red light, no additional therapies bundled in. 3 years, 3 stars. Solidly average for this category. 30 days, 2 stars. Not terrible, but not especially consumer-friendly either at this price point. Overall, the Vasindux lands in the same ultra-low intensity category as brands like Bemer and QRS. If that's the style of PEMF you specifically want, that's completely fine. But from a pure specs per dollar perspective, there are stronger intensity options available in this price range, and several of them also offer longer return windows and better overall value. Mat for 22, HealthyWave PEMF, HealthyWave, a Canadian wellness brand that packs a lot of therapies into one system. This one aims to be more of an all-in-one recovery and relaxation mat than a pure clinical PEMF device. 3 Gauss, 3 stars. That clears my minimum recommendation threshold and puts it comfortably into the usable therapeutic range. 8 coils, 4 stars. A solid, dependable setup for full body coverage. Multi-therapy, 5 stars. This is where HealthyWave really shines. You're getting multiple wellness modalities combined into one product. 3 years, 3 stars, fairly standard for this segment. 90 days, 5 stars. Excellent return window. That gives buyers enough time to actually evaluate whether the mat works for them. I still think the HealthyLine Jet Mat delivers stronger overall value in this category, but HealthyWave is competitive. HealthyWave delivers a balanced package overall. Good therapy variety, solid coil count, and one of the best return policies we've seen so far. The intensity and warranty are more middle of the pack, but nothing here feels unreasonable for the price. Mat No. 23, Higher Dose PEMF. Higher Dose is probably one of the most recognizable wellness lifestyle brands on this list. Huge social media presence, beautiful branding, strong influencer marketing, but let's focus on the actual specs. Intensity not published, 0 stars. And honestly, this continues to be one of my biggest frustrations with higher dose. The marketing is polished, the visuals are beautiful, but when it comes to technical transparency, the information is extremely limited. 4 coils, 2 stars. That's a fairly low coil count for a mat in this price range. Multi-therapy, 5 stars. Combining infrared with PEMF is definitely appealing for many users. 1 year, 1 star. That's short compared to many competitors. 30 days, 2 stars. Personally, I think the HealthyLine Jet Mat is a stronger value proposition overall. Higher dose feels like a wellness lifestyle brand first, and a technical PEMF company second. That doesn't automatically make it bad. Plenty of people genuinely love the brand experience. But if you care about hard specs, transparency, warranty coverage, and measurable performance, the numbers simply don't stack up especially well for the price. Mat No. 24, Parmeds Home, Curatronic. The Parmeds Home by Curatronic. This is where we start moving closer to clinical grade territory. And importantly, this system includes a high-powered applicator accessory for targeted treatment. 70 Gauss for the mat alone already earns 5 stars plus, but then you add the 200 Gauss applicator for focused areas like joints or injuries, and the intensity potential becomes extremely impressive. Coil count wasn't specified, so I'm not going to score it. PEMF only, 3 stars. No bundled infrared or additional therapies here. This is much more of a focused PEMF system. This one is a little tricky. The mat itself gets 3 years, which is respectable, but the controller, basically the brain of the system, only gets 6 months of coverage. That's surprisingly short for a premium price device. 90 days, 5 stars, excellent return policy. I still think the HealthyLine Jet Mat offers better overall value for most people, but this is operating in a more clinical category. This is a serious device with genuinely powerful intensity levels. The return policy is excellent, and the targeted applicator is a major differentiator. The one thing that really stands out negatively is that 6-month controller warranty. On a system costing over $4,000, I would absolutely want stronger coverage on the electronics. Mat, number 25, Centropix Cloud. The Centropix Cloud, $6,000. So naturally, expectations are going to be very high here. Let's see if the specs justify that premium pricing. 2 Gauss, 3 stars. And honestly, for $6,000, that is difficult to justify. 8 coils, 4 stars. Perfectly respectable, but not extraordinary. PEMF only, 3 stars. 3 years, 3 stars. Again, fine, but not exceptional at this price level. 30 days, 2 stars. For a $6,000 purchase, I would want substantially more buyer protection. I think the HealthyLine Jet Mat is a far stronger value proposition. I'll be honest here, I struggle to find a specs-based justification for the $6,000 price tag. The intensity is modest, the return policy is short, and it's PEMF only. Centropix also operates through an MLM-style distribution structure, which can significantly inflate pricing. So before buying, I would strongly encourage people to compare the raw specs against competitors very carefully. Mat number 26, Bon Charge. Next up, Bon Charge. Bon Charge has exploded in popularity in the wellness and biohacking world over the last few years. They've built a strong brand identity around sleek aesthetics, recovery tools, blue light products, and premium wellness accessories. So let's see how their PEMF mat stacks up on actual specs. And right away we hit the biggest issue, no published Gauss intensity, that's 0 stars for transparency. Same issue we saw with higher dose earlier in the review. If consumers are expected to spend over $1,000, they deserve to know how powerful the device actually is. 8 coils earns 4 stars, solid coil count, good overall coverage. This is where Bon Charge shines. PEMF, infrared, red light, negative ions, hot stones. This is a full multi-therapy setup. That's an easy 5 stars. 1 year warranty, just 1 star. That feels short for a premium wellness product in this price category. 30-day returns, 2 stars. Reasonable, but not especially generous. I still think the HealthyLine Jet Mat offers stronger overall value. Bon Charge absolutely understands branding and therapy variety. This mat checks a lot of boxes from a feature standpoint, but not publishing intensity is a major transparency problem for me personally. Consumers should not have to guess how powerful a PEMF device is, and at this price, the 1 year warranty feels undersized. If they improve transparency and extended warranty coverage, this would become a much stronger contender. Mat number 27, Heat Healer. Now we move into Heat Healer. Heat Healer has gained a lot of traction with wellness-focused consumers, especially people already interested in infrared saunas and heat therapy. So expectations here are pretty high on the comfort and therapy side. Let's see how the specs compare. 1 Gauss, that barely reaches the 1-star threshold. So intensity-wise, this sits near the bottom of the list, and unfortunately the coil count is not specified. That's another transparency issue. The therapy stack is strong though. Multi-therapy setup earns 5 stars. This is clearly positioned as a relaxation and wellness-focused experience. No published warranty information. Honestly, that's concerning. Warranty information should be easy to find on any product over $1,000. And then the biggest red flag, no returns, 0 stars. That puts all of the purchase risk on the consumer. Again, I think the HealthyLine Jet Mat remains the stronger value play. This is one of those mats where the therapy variety sounds great on paper, but the missing transparency starts becoming hard to ignore. No coil count, no visible warranty terms, no return policy. At $1,300, consumers deserve much more clarity before making a commitment. Mat number 28, Gruny next, is Gruny. Gruny originally built its reputation around grounding and earthing products, but recently expanded into PEMF technology. And honestly, this one surprised me, in a good way. 3.5 Gauss, that pushes it just over the 4-star threshold. Strong start, 12 coils. That is excellent for this price category. 5 stars plus. That amount of coil coverage under $1,200 is genuinely competitive. Multi-therapy setup earns another 5 stars. Lots of functionality packed into this device. 2-year warranty, only 2 stars. That's the weakest part of the package. 60-day returns earns 4 stars. That's much more consumer friendly. Still slightly behind the HealthyLine Jet Mat overall for me, but this is one of the stronger performers in this range. The Gruny is honestly one of the better surprises in this review. 12 coils, multi-therapy, respectable intensity, and a good return policy, all at under $1,200. That's competitive. The one thing holding it back is the warranty. If they extended that to 3 or 5 years, this would move firmly into top-tier territory for the price. Mat number 29, PEMF Mat Source ZK15 Coil. Now we move into one of the more interesting entries in the review, the PEMF Mat Source ZK15 Coil. This comes from a more specialized PEMF-focused retailer, and the specs are immediately aggressive. 65 Gauss, excellent intensity. 5 stars plus, 15 coils, outstanding coverage. Again, 5 stars plus. PEMF plus infrared earns 5 stars. Simple but effective. And then we get to the warranty, 99 years. Now realistically, this is more of a symbolic lifetime style warranty than something most people will literally use for a century. But from a consumer confidence standpoint, it scores extremely high. Then comes the trade-off, no returns, 0 stars. That is the one major weakness here. Spec for dollar, this is one of the strongest performers in the review. Honestly, this thing scores incredibly well on paper. High intensity, excellent coil coverage, strong therapy setup, extremely aggressive warranty. The 0 return policy is the one thing that stops me from fully endorsing it, because once returns disappear, all the risk shifts onto the buyer. Still, if you can test one first, or you already know you like this style of PEMF system, the specs per dollar ratio here is extremely hard to ignore. Mat number 30, PEMF Mat Source ZK20 Coil. And finally, we have the ZK20. Same company, same price, same overall platform. But now we jump from 15 coils to 20, which immediately gets attention. Same 65 Gauss intensity, still excellent, 5 stars plus. 20 coils, that ties the highest coil count in the entire review alongside the BioBalance, but at a dramatically lower price point. That is impressive. Same multi-therapy setup, 5 stars, same lifetime style warranty, 5 stars plus. And again, no returns, 0 stars. From a raw spec perspective, this is one of the strongest values in the entire lineup. This is basically the ZK15 turned up one more notch. 5 additional coils for the same price makes this the obvious choice between the two models. Again, the only real concern is the 0 return policy. That bothers me. But if that doesn't bother you, this becomes one of the most aggressive spec packages anywhere near this price range. And that wraps up all 30 PEMF mats reviewed and scored across 5 categories: intensity, coil count, therapy variety, warranty coverage, and return policy. And after going through all 30, a few very clear patterns started to emerge. First, but intensity varies wildly across this industry. We saw everything from tiny fractional outputs like the Bemer, all the way up to 700 Gauss on the Celler8 Full Mat. That is an enormous range. And depending on your goals, relaxation, recovery, circulation, performance, or high-intensity stimulation, that difference matters. Second, transparency is still a huge issue in this industry. Several companies still do not publish their Gauss ratings at all. Higher dose, bon charge, Therasage, heat healer, and personally, I don't think that's acceptable anymore. If a company wants consumers to spend thousands of dollars, the core performance specs should be clearly available. Third, return policies tell you a lot about how confident a company is in its product. Brands offering 90 days or more are taking on part of the risk themselves. Brands offering 0-day returns are asking the customer to assume all of it. And in this review, the Sparkle Mat really stood out with that 108-day return policy. That's consumer confidence. Fourth, warranty coverage matters far more than most people realize. A PEMF mat is an electronic wellness device with coils, heating systems, wiring, controllers, and moving components. Things can fail over time. So when one company offers 6 months and another offers 5 years, that difference is significant. And finally, price and value are not the same thing. Some of the most expensive mats in this review were not the highest scoring. Meanwhile, products like the Hooga Chakra mat delivered surprisingly strong value relative to cost. So hopefully this review helps you cut through the marketing and focus on the actual numbers. And if you want to compare all of these mats side by side without having to pause the video every 30 seconds, I put everything together for you in one place. Go to perfectpemf.com where you can see a full comparison table with all 33 mats lined up next to each other, including intensity, coil count, therapy types, warranty coverage, return policies, frequency ranges, pricing, and overall ratings. That way you can actually compare the specs directly instead of bouncing between a bunch of different manufacturer websites trying to piece everything together yourself. I also included some of the biggest things people overlook when shopping for a PEMF mat, like transparency, return windows, and long-term value. So if you're still deciding between a few models, that comparison table should make the decision a whole lot easier. Again, that's perfectpemf.com. If this breakdown helped you, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people trying to make informed wellness decisions. Subscribe if you want more deep dive wellness reviews like this. And drop your questions in the comments. Which mat are you considering right now? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear what stood out to you most from the review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.